So it will fuse to the plasma membrane. So tanaw ang color niya. Okay, somewhat like blue-green, which means that this comes from the vesicle. And then the protein will be released, and then the cell will use it outside. So how would it reach the protein? Okay, because of that molecular tagging, it will lead there to the specific protein, specific cell. I mean, gets? Okay. Lysosomes serve as the cell's digestive system. Where does this lysosome come from? The lysosome actually is also the product of your ER, which was modified by the Golgi complex, and it becomes the lysosome. And the lysosome contains a hydrolytic enzyme. What is that hydrolytic enzyme? It is just like the acid in your stomach, capable of digesting everything. Okay? Capable of digesting everything. Okay, so in other words, if, for example, the mitochondria is no longer functional, it will also be digested by the lysosome because it's no longer needed. And the organic matter that can be found in the mitochondria will be recycled by the cell itself. Okay, so that's why it serves as the digestive system. This lysosome is very powerful. Okay, destructive. Okay, so the lysosomes are vesicles that contain enzymes that can break proteins. So just like that's why it's called as digestive system, because capable of chopping down those organic matter, just like your protein, fats, carbohydrates, into component subunits. When I say component subunits, these are their basic structure. Because carbohydrates are composed of monosaccharide units. So in order for the cell to use it, it must be digested first. Like for example, in a macro level, if you eat rice is carbohydrates. So the cell in your body cannot use carbohydrates because it's a macromolecule. So it must undergo first the process of digestion in our digestive system. And that's the time now that it will be transported through the blood in the form of glucose. Okay, and then the cell will utilize it and convert that into ATP. The same thing with the lysosome. Bigger molecules in the cell must be chopped down into their subunits so that the cell can use it. Ayos? Any question? Alright. Now, so this is the lysosome. This is a eukaryotic cell. This is the lysosome. And what is inside it are enzymes, hydrolytic enzymes, capable of digesting everything. Alright? Question? Alright, sige. Yes.
Everything, sir.
Everything.
As long as...
But have you noticed? You will be asking everything, sir, how come everything inside the cell was not digested? Because the hydrolytic enzyme is still contained in that membrane. So it is well protected inside. So in other words, the lysosomes should combine with the next organelle known as food vacuole so that it will be released there. In other words, the digestion is still happening inside a compartment. And what is that compartment? The membrane. So it is not just, released, okay, irresponsibly inside the cell. Okay? Yes.
Or the film cell will self-destruct.
Yeah, cell can self-destruct the moment that the length of the chromosome is no longer healthy. Okay? So in other words, we call it as apoptosis or programmed cell death. Apoptosis is happening if the telomere of the chromosome is very short already. So which means that if you allow that cell to divide, it may cause cancer cells. So that's why unhealthy cells, wherein the telomere is short, they will undergo the so-called programmed cell death or apoptosis to avoid the development of cancer cells. Ayos? Have I answered your question? Yes, Jeter.
So, sir, nga bago ginasir kung hindi sa lysosome, i-digest ang mitochondria kung why over.
Yes.
Then, like, paano yung determine kung
because in the cell, it's not only one mitochondria. There are several mitochondria. So the cell would identify as in mitochondria number 5 is no longer functioning. Okay? Destroy it. Because the organic matter for the cell mitochondria will still be used by the cell to make new membrane or new organelles. Yes?
So, any part na sa cell na may nag-work,
It will be digested.
will be digested.
Yes. Yes.
Now, clarification, sir, ang lysosome, sir, ang umagas doon nga substance, sir, siya ang
Yes, like for example, bacteria can also be killed by lysosome. Macromolecules na organic substance, kaya ang cell dapat subunits na smaller units ang gamiton. So it must be chopped down. So it is being chopped down by the lysosome. Yes, yes. Oo, dapat. Ang Golgi apparatus niya, it remodels a kind of protein into a fashion na needed or into a particular protein needed by a particular cell. Before niya pagwaon ng substance, kaya kinanglan to ni cell ng substance. So before niya pagwaon, kinanglan i-remodel niya na. Okay niya into a protein that will suit the need of that cell or will suit on that particular organelle. Yan is a particular organelle. Okay, so umaga, gina-tailored fit niya. Ayos? Okay, sige. So what is the major function of lysosome? Digest food particles which range from individual proteins to complete microorganisms. So that's how powerful the lysosome is. Yes, yes.
Separate ang lysosome sa Golgi.
Yes, it's a separate organelle. But the lysosome comes from the product of ER that was remodeled by the Golgi.
At so halin siya sa Golgi.
Halin siya sa Golgi. Okay? So this is how lysosome digests food. Okay? Like for example, what is this? This is the plasma membrane. So as what I have mentioned a while ago, the plasma membrane is capable of pinching off. Okay? If you were able to watch the video that I uploaded in YouTube, I discussed that there. So, pinch off. Once it pinch off, okay, paghalin niya, it will form into a food vacuole. So the part of the plasma membrane that pinch off will become the food vacuole. Okay. So, look at this one. As what I discussed a while ago, that the digestive enzyme is not released by the lysosome irresponsibly. Okay? Kaya kung i-release na natin, it will destroy the cell. So, it will only be released inside the membrane. Okay? The lysosome, look at this one, fused with the food vacuole. Yan. And then that's the time that the hydrolytic enzyme will be released to digest the food. So the digestion is still compartmentalized. It is happening inside the membrane, not outside of the membrane, to protect the cell. Do you get my point? Okay, so the moment that it's already digested, those are already subunits that will be readily used by the cell. That's the time that it will be released. Yes, Paul.
Clarification, to digest
Ah?
to digest the food.
Food dude.
Okay.
Okay. Food dude. Okay. Dude. Oh, yes.
Sir, is it possible na ma-digest na may
Ang nucleus? Possible. Possible. It is still organic matter. Yes.
Before does the lysosome go, sir, pag-mix nila? Pag-combine na, sir, din?
Pag-combine niya, pag-release niya nga daan, lahalin na siya.
Okay.
I-release niya man lang niya ang iyang digestive enzyme. Okay? So, capable mo siya sa pag-pinch off and then regain its full more or shape. Yes, structure.
So, sir, kung na-release, sir, ang iyaman dyan, sir, ang lysosome, sir,
Yes, yes. It will also produce another set of enzyme. Okay? So, lysosome also digests excess cellular membranes in and defective or malfunctioning organelles. Okay, just like I have mentioned, mitochondria, ER, they're no longer functioning, then it will be digested. Yes, Jeter?
Is there ano mga parts na like kasama sa isang kasal? Like, I mean, like, sa mitochondria gamot ito. Sa isang kasal. Ano mga parts na like, and if ever nga malfunctioning na nakapamayan ng kasal?
That's a nice question. Okay. What determines the based on my readings? What determines the death of the cell is actually their inability to perform mitosis. Okay, inability to perform mitosis, because it would result to uncontrolled cell division if they will not be killed. Okay. Yes. Cancer cells. Okay. So, proceed that. So, why is it important to the cell? Ang lysosome. Okay, digestive enzymes within the lysosome enable the cell to recycle valuable materials. That's why lysosome can also be considered as a recycler of the cell itself. Okay? So, it's not only that they will destroy it, but the destruction of a particular organelle, okay, the materials that are left there will also be used by, okay, the cell to reconstruct and to make another new organelles. Yes?
Sir, kung gamang function ng lysosome, wala active lysosome either.
So imagine if the lysosome, because of its powerful hydrolytic enzyme, what do you think will happen to the cell? See? So it will totally destroy the cell. Okay. Okay. Now when you are still developing as a baby, there is an excess membrane